Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sprint 251 review. This was a normal 2-week sprint, but it was right before the US Thanksgiving holiday, so some people took some time off near the end. Let's get started. I'll start with the overview. I have a community announcement after that. Then we'll have Gilbert on the UI, Adam on providers, and Joe on the platform. So as you can see, it was a fairly typical sprint with a few more PRs merged, with 121 PRs merged. And of the closed PRs, mostly tests, but some bugs and enhancements in there. On the community side, Kinteros 2 has been released. It fixes two CVEs, and then there's a handful of other small problems. This is the blog post. Please take a look at it because upgrading to Kinteros 2 is a little weird since the CentOS Vault or CentOS Stream 8 has moved into the Vault. So there's some manual steps you have to do when you upgrade. And note that when we go to Rajabov, that will be on CentOS Stream 9, so it's going to require all new appliances. And over to Gilbert on the UI.
Thanks, Jason. So going into the UI, we'll start with the UI Classic. Sam removed the copy and paste button for the automation simulation page. I bumped the cross-spawn package from 6.05 to 6.06. And then we had the bot update the UI JSON translation files and lock down Ruby version to 3.3. Both of those were helped with Joe's review. Next, for the UI service, I updated Crossbond package to 7.0.6, as well as Node Sass, Bootstrap Select, Post CSS, Patternfly, and jQuery to 3.7.1. That's it for the UI. Next is Adam.
Thanks, Gilbert. For AWX this sprint, Joe fixed an issue with resource being an association, not an attribute, which was causing an error in Rails 7.1 that was on the credentials model, I believe. For embedded Terraform, Manoj fixed the API endpoint that the Terraform runner available method calls. It should have been using the /live API, and so we got that updated. IBM Power VC, Jay fixed a bug where an invalid LPAR UUID in an event was causing the targeted refresh to fail to find whatever the object was. So he is checking to see if the UUID that gets returned in the event is one of those invalid ones, and he's forcing a full refresh on that provider. Coming out of that, I changed the way that we are parsing the event URL to use a regular expression as opposed to splitting and doing relative and a string checks, and also moved some methods that were only called for the event target parser module to be private to clean up the external API there. Next slide. For KubeVirt, there's a lot of work from Nasser this sprint to add event support. So we are now connecting to the underlying Kubernetes API for events and looking for events related to VMs and hosts on the KubeVirt API. He also added some specs for the event parsing and added VM event groups to settings so that you can see the events on the UI. For VMware, we added specs for the NIC settings customization as part of provisioning and also fixed a bug that we found while we were doing that. Found that if you wanted to pass multiple NICs in an array, you had to duplicate the values for the first one, otherwise they would get overwritten. Nasser fixed a bug with delegating the refresh EMS class method to the parent cloud manager so that the network manager didn't get refreshed by itself. It would refresh the cloud and the network manager. And we also bumped the FFI VIX disklib gem so that we could pull in 803 vSphere support for smart state analysis. And for Flow, we fixed a bug with running a child workflow, causing it to execute in a tight loop as opposed to breaking out when it would block and allowing events to step when it was ready. This was left over from the initial kind of simple implementation, and we accidentally left it in as a tight loop as opposed to going through with events. And we also fixed a bug with map and parallel states checking the container runner status for finished states, which was causing errors while it was running. And that is it for providers. Over to Joe.
Thanks, Adam. For platform enhancements this sprint, Keenan allowed users to configure a LDAP group name delimiter with the goal of being able to use a colon character, as some authentication servers use non-colon delimiters, so you could actually use a colon in the group name. Next, Ruby 3.3 support was finally arrived in the sprint. It made it over to finish line. Some of the changes this sprint included JSON fixing a dbus API service and gems pending to add Ruby 3.3 in the testing matrix. Adam bumped the cross repo test to also test with Ruby 3.3. Keenan made some changes in core to use 3.1 and 3.3 in our testing on the main repo. And he also asserted that you're actually using Ruby's greater than 3.1 and less than 3.5, with a little warning if you're using 3.4 as a developer that it's not really tested. So, use with caution. And finally, Jason fixed a typo in the CI YAML, preventing the proper testing on Ruby 3.3. Next, we had some Rails 7.1 changes that were merged. These include using the new Rails 7.1 serialized interface within the models. We also had some test failures with Rails 7.1 and 7.2 in the schema repo. So for now, we disabled those. We allowed those tests to fail while we actually will go back and fix those. And finally, we added some git ignores for the Rails credentials. Next, Brandon updated the non-breaking dependencies in Podified. And we updated the English strings from our code, and we merged some updated translations based upon those changes. Next slide. For platform bugs this sprint, Keenan fixed the performance regression bug where a preloading scope was being sent as a query without a where clause. Next, I brought back a missing set of dashboard widgets with a name that include RSS, but they weren't actually RSS feeds, since RSS feeds were removed. But in this case, these reports were not RSS feeds, so we resurrected them. Next, Brandon deleted the OpenSSL libs RPM as a dependency in RPM build, as it's already installed in the UBI 9 system. Next slide.
And that's for our Sprint 251 review. Our next Sprint review 252 will be on December 11th at the usual place and time. And as always, I'd like to thank all the members of our community, all the presenters here today, and everybody who's working on ManageIQ. Thanks, everyone.